Black family? Welcome to Wake Up the Black Nation. Richmond X, the real minister of information, also known as the urban war correspondent, signing on. Cherokee Nation faces scrutiny for expelling blacks. This is an article that I came across on NPR.com. And it's talking about how over 2,800 black people in Oklahoma are losing their tribal rights, are being kicked out of the Cherokee Nation. The Cherokee Nation recently decided to limit its membership to people who can prove they have Indian blood. This strips of their citizenship rights about 2,800 African Americans who are descendants of slaves once owned by wealthy Cherokees. Those rights include access to health care clinics, food distribution for the poor, and assistance for low-income homeowners. The move prompted protest amongst these African Americans who are known as freedmen, because for long periods in the past they enjoyed equal rights in the Cherokee tribe. But in more recent history, their citizenship rights have been repeatedly challenged. The Bureau of Indian Affairs declined an interview request, but in a letter sent to the Cherokee Nation earlier this month, it said the freedmen's citizenship rights cannot be revoked. The Cherokee first agreed to grant the freedmen equal rights in a treaty signed with the U.S. in 1866 following the end of the Civil War. So what we are seeing is black people in America who are losing all of their rights from a tribe which they have been a part of for over 150 years. Emancipation and the Dawes Rose. In 1866, the Cherokee Nation signed a treaty with the federal government that abolished slavery except as a means of punishment, and granted former African American slaves and their descendants all the rights of native Cherokees. The freedmen say they've been kicked out of the Cherokee Nation by people who are no more Indian than they are. The majority of folks who are members of the tribe have lived lives of white privilege, says Marilyn Vann, who heads the Descendants of Freedmen Association. She says many Cherokees are largely white and are people who have never been discriminated against a day in their lives. The Cherokee Nation Supreme Court ruled in late August that the black freedmen could be stripped of their citizenship because they can't prove they have Indian blood. The tribe first voted in favor of this effort in 2007. While turnout for the Cherokee elections tend to be low, more than 75% of all voters were in favor of the move. Now I want y'all to think about this, black family. This article just told us that turnout for the Cherokee elections is always low. But when it came time to vote black people out, 75% of all voters were in favor of the move of stripping African Americans who have been a part of this tribe for over 150 years all of their rights. Stripping these rights, taking all of this from their children, of people who came here with the Indians during the Trail of Tears, who suffered just like them. And now they come together and say, we want y'all out of here. And y'all can't get none of these rights. Y'all can't get none of these scholarships for your children. Y'all can't get no medical care. Y'all black. Y'all ain't a part of us. Y'all go over there. This is the history of America. And when we dealing with these other nations, all these people was fighting for the conservation of their people. They don't give a damn about black folks. You understand? This is what the Cherokee leaders had to say. This is not a club. You can't just show up, claim to be Cherokee. This is not a club. You can't just claim to be Cherokee and show up and be included, says Kara Cohen Watts, a vocal member of the Cherokee Tribal Council. This woman is saying that we just showed up. Now, I know some freedmen personally. They didn't just show up. They've been in the tribe since day one. You understand? The Cherokee Nation is the largest of three federally recognized Cherokee tribes. It boasts more than 300,000 members, and like many Indian nations, it fiercely defends its rights to self-governance. You see? This is absolutely something we have to defend. And the Cherokee people overwhelmingly voted in the Constitution that we want to remain an Indian tribe made up of Indians, Watts said. So these Cherokees have judges, they have council people, and they able to go in there and say, we're going to kick out thousands of black folks out this tribe. And it's overwhelming. It's not just a few of them saying this. So black folks, we have to understand something. Why is it that we don't have our own council? Why don't we have our own courts? Why are we not governing ourselves just like these nations? Why does the black man and black woman in America not have tribal rights when we are some of the original Americans who have been here before Columbus, who have been here before the Constitution of the United States? So where are our rights? Our people are absolutely being targeted by other races. You see? Now let's read further. It is a largely forgotten footnote of history that some wealthy Indians in the Deep South owned African slaves. Those slaves joined their Indian masters on the Trail of Tears when tens of thousands of Indians were pushed out of the Deep South and west into Oklahoma, my state, in the early 1800s. The freedmen say the nation's decision prevents more than 3,500 blacks from becoming Cherokee citizens because their applications have never been processed. So they saying straight up to the black people, you cannot be a part of our nation. We don't want you here. You are not our people. This is straight up racism. They putting it all in your face. The freedmen's estimates may be sound. Many historians agree that at least 10% of all people on the Cherokee Trail of Tears were black. At least 10% of the people on the Trail of Tears was black. Came here with the Indian, and we built up our own towns, such as Boley, Taft, Tallahassee, Oklahoma. Those black towns, many of them were built by freedmen, former slaves of the Indian tribes. We have been here before Oklahoma was even a state. Oklahoma got statehood in 1908. Black folks was here before 1889 with the land run and when the white folks came. It was just black and Indians in Oklahoma. And so what is being taken from these people are everything is being taken from them. Some Indian tribes have a blood quantum that requires a grandmother or great-grandfather to be Indian, not the Cherokees. They simply require that a citizen have an Indian ancestor who appears on the Dawes Rolls, list of Indian citizens created by the U.S. government in the early 1900s. They included categories not only for Indians of various blood mixtures, but for whites and blacks as well. In fact, the Dawes Rolls included thousands of blacks and whites who have lived with Indian tribes such as the Cherokees for generations. These non-Indians were historically recognized as Cherokee citizens, and that's why some view the tribe's recent decision as unjust. They never said we were lying. They never said that the evidence that is in the National Archives, that is in the libraries here, was false, Vance says. But it's basically, we can do what we want to do. She's talking about the Indians. We have casinos. We can buy Washington, D.C. from the top on down. That's the mentality of the folks here. And she's exactly right. Daniel Littlefield is a historian at the University of Arkansas who has written books on this subject. He says there's another problem with the nation's decision. Many black freedmen actually have Indian blood. I have to say frankly that when you start making a blood argument for membership in an organization, you are dealing with race whether you want to or not, he says. And Daniel Littlefield is exactly right. But the problem, he says, is that blacks, even those who were part Indian, were simply labeled as black on the dolls' rolls. Yet those Indians mixed with white were labeled Indian. Do y'all see that power move that white folks have pulled on our people? So while the African Americans was thinking that they was becoming a part of the Cherokee Nation, they was getting all of these benefits, but they names, they were still labeled as black. While you had these white folks, these $5 Indians, and these whites that had a little Indian blood in them, they was called Indian. And now they're able to retain, to keep their rights, while our people are losing their rights. So what this looks like to me is a racial chess move. They knew one day that they was going to cut the black folks off. And that's what Mr. Elijah Muhammad been telling our people for years, is that one day you're going to have to do for self, because everybody's going for their own self. There were many Cherokees in the Cherokee Nation and on the Cherokee by blood roll who had very little blood quantum, he says. If you think that 1,024th Cherokee blood makes you a Cherokee, then that to me is one of the most blatant forms of racism. So brothers and sisters, that's an article that I read on NPR.com. You can go check it out for yourself. It's titled Cherokee Nation Faces Scrutiny for Expelling Blacks. And this is a very interesting history with me coming from this state of Oklahoma, because I know freedmen personally. I know freedmen right here in this state of Oklahoma who have lost all of their rights. This is complete hypocrisy. They putting it all in our face. That's why I keep preaching against integration and against alliances, because what are we gaining from it? You have a people who have been a part of this tribe for over 150 years. And you see their rights just being taken away from them just like that. And the Indians coming together in majority numbers and voting against kicking black people out of the tribe. So this shows us that they never had love for us in the first place. This shows us that we have no friends. And you have to ask yourself, why is it that we don't have tribal rights as black people? When we done shed all of this blood, we are some of the original Americans. We done been through the same as the Indians. Even we done been through worse than the Indians, because they still got something. That's what I always tell these Indian people. That's what I was trying to tell that older man, Indian man last night. You want to talk about alliances, but what is the black folks gaining from this? Cough up some land. If the Indians want to make alliances with black Americans, then first cough up some land. That's what we want. We not trying to sit up here and just hold hands and sing Kumbaya and hit the peace pipe and, understand me, sit around and talk about the white man all day. That's not the goal. But we see, even when they do give up some land, it can easily be taken back. This is straight up hypocrisy. What is happening to our people is definitely unjust. That's why I keep telling black folks, y'all better start studying these other nations. I always see brothers and sisters running around talking about they got Indian blood in them. I always talk about how they got Cherokee blood in them. I say, okay, maybe you do. Maybe I got a little Indian blood in me. But what does that benefit me? What do I get? Do I get school money? Do I get health care from that? I get nothing from that. So recognize that with you being mostly black, that puts you in a unique nation, the black nation. And so the black nation, in order to move forward, they have to organize the same way that these Indian nations organize. You see? They have their own courts, have their own land, have their own police department, have their own leaders and officials. You see? We don't have none of that. And a part of history that many people don't talk about is the black slave revolts. I touched on this yesterday. The black slave revolts against the Indians. And we had some right here in the state of Oklahoma. Just look it up. There were a few. where black men and women rose up against their Indian slave masters. If it wasn't for the Civil War, then them Indians would have kept us as slaves. And this is not, I'm talking specifically right now about the Cherokee Nation. But there's other nations, other Indian nations who own slaves as well. And I'll touch on them later. So I just wanted to share this story with you all. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Make sure that y'all subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not done so. Salute. Until next time, take care of yourself.